Greetings everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Captain Ryan. Today's YouTube video is a subscriber submitted replay here on World of Warships. This replay comes from Builtmcqueen and he is in his Tier 10 Russian destroyer leader, the Kharb. And it's the post-patch Kharb, which means, as you can tell by the consumables, he's got the heal ability on the ship. Now, I haven't played any of the Russian destroyer line other than the first one, I think. So I really don't know how much of a change that actually impacts in your gameplay. With the exception of the removal of the smoke screen, meaning that Russian destroyer can no longer camp smoke and invisifire at you from long range. And of course, with the new patch updates coming out, a lot of destroyers are getting a nerf, so they'll no longer be able to stealth fire. Simultaneously, though, a lot of destroyers, specifically the German ones and the high-tier Russian ones, are actually kind of getting a little bit of a buff by that, which will be fantastic. Because I don't like shooting my guns in the Z-52 at something that's 12 kilometers away, only to be spotted and shot at by things that are 15 kilometers away. It's really annoying. Built manages to secure a first blood by effectively annihilating enemy destroyer right off the bat. That's going to help his team out a lot, considering that the enemy team had an equal number of destroyers at the start of the battle, and anytime you can take out those destroyers and give your team a destroyer advantage, especially early on in game, you can usually find a way to better secure victory. Regardless of the destroyer, the longer your destroyers stay alive to the late game, the more dangerous, deadly they become, and the more damage that they end up doing. So far, Built has not actually fired a single torpedo in this battle. All of it has been through guns, and he's racking up quite a bit of damage early on in the game. The enemy team manages to take out a friendly destroyer. That's a little bit unfortunate, so they're equal up again. But the enemy team does have the A cap point secured. Built's team is trying to contest the C cap point, but the enemy looks like they're actually contesting it and are capping it. And this could be a bit of a problem. Remember, folks, capping wins games, but so does killing enemy ships and being a little more aggressive, getting up there and dealing that damage. Now, for the most part, for the first bit of this battle, Built has basically just been sticking around by the island back by A. And I'd kind of like to suggest, if you find yourself in this position, that you disengage with the enemy, and especially if you're in a destroyer, you get up and you start contesting those cap points. Let your cruisers and battleships slug it out. Yes, provide fire support and assistance, but get up there and contest those cap points. Because again, those cap points are incredibly important early on in game. As we saw by my gearing video last week, if you don't cap and you start losing ships, well, if you hit that 0 point marker, you lose the game, whether the enemy team has 1,000 points or not. Enemy team is starting to cap B. Built's team is still somewhat contesting the C cap point, but they're not really making any headway here. The enemy has managed to take out yet another destroyer on Built's team, but they've also managed to lose a destroyer as well. So again, ships-wise, they're still pretty equal. Though, due to the fact that they've had the cap point for so long, and that they're contesting the other cap points, pretty much means they're going to have the advantage in points. Built has continued to spam high explosive at all of the battleships, and as you can see here, he's racked up well over 70,000 damage, and a lot of that is in fires. Kharberov's particularly good at spamming high explosive and setting a lot of fires. It's one of the more annoying ships to deal with in any Tier 10 matchup you have to face. Of course, one of the best ways to counter the Kharberovsk, if you're in a destroyer, especially in a destroyer that's sneakier than a Kharb, is to simply get up within 7 kilometers of it and then just start laying into it. Because he's going to be detected by you at a range of 8 or 9 kilometers, depending on his captain skills and camo. And of course, the friendly ships on your team can hopefully shoot at him, causing him to panic. And then you can pop up, if you're an American destroyer, at less than 7 kilometers and just rip into him. If you're in a German destroyer, not really recommended, but if you have to, if he's lower HP than you, switch over to high explosive if he's giving broadside and just lay into him with some consistent 3,000 to 5,000 damage salvos. Built is disappearing back behind this island here, and his team is down 2 more ships. The enemy team is only down 1 ship, so they're currently with a ship's advantage, and they are currently with a huge point advantage. Look at that. They've got 2 of the cap points. They're about to have all 3 of the cap points. This means that they now have a total dominating presence on the battlefield. What their team should do now, in order to secure their victory, that's the enemy team, is simply push up into those cap points and hold them at all costs. All they need to do is maintain their points, maintain their caps, and they'll win. Bill comes around this island here, he gets a couple of torpedoes away, and he's aiming those torpedoes at that Yamato, who is reversing. Built is detected and he opens fire here, and of course this is one of those situations where having a smoke screen would be kind of nice and handy and useful, because obviously getting shot at by Yamato secondaries is not a good thing, but at the very least it's not Kurfürst secondaries. Those things will wreck you outright. From the look of the dispersion, it looks like the Yamato does not have a secondary build. Built's torpedoes continuing towards that Yamato. Will they hit? It doesn't look like the first set's going to hit. Yeah, they're going to miss. But the second set looks like he might land 1 or 2 on there with any luck. He could have had 5, but because of when he fired them, one of them clipped the island. He does manage to hit that Yamato with 1, and there is his Witherer medal, of all things. I think that's mostly due to the number of fires that he set in this game, and not much to do with that flooding. His team has managed to pull back a little bit on the scores. They still don't have any cap points, but they've managed to turn the team's lists around, and now their team has the ship's advantage. And they're concentrating fire, which is exactly what they need to do, on 1 sole wounded target, and they managed to take the Yamato out of the game. The situation now basically requires that his team cooperate and get in there and start securing those cap points. Again, as you can see, the enemy team, even though they've lost more ships now, they're still up on points, and they still hold 2 of the cap points, which means they're still gaining those points. They still have their aircraft carrier, and the aircraft carrier can provide some excellent spotting as well as cause some problems for, well, any of the ships. And at this stage, late in game, if Built in his Kharb here ends up getting spotted by that carrier, he could be in a world of hurt because of all the enemy ships that are still left out there. Not to mention, the enemy team still has 2 destroyers, and remember, as I said, a destroyer in the late game like this can be extremely important and extremely valuable to maintain, because they can get up behind these islands and just lay torpedo ambushes. He's continuing to put fires out here and set those fires on the big targets that he knows he can hit. The question at this point, though, is where are those destroyers? Well, one of them just got taken out, which is fantastic. That leaves 1 destroyer per team. And Built has managed to, for some reason, not be shot at enough to actually have needed to use his heal ability. And he's still got most of his HP, which is also excellent for a destroyer this late in the battle. That means if he does run into the enemy destroyer, he can effectively engage him in a gunfight and not have to worry too much about him. Enemy aircraft coming in here, and again, this is where having that smokescreen would be a fantastic thing. Built manages to secure his 2nd kill in this game, And only his second kill in this game, in spite of doing something like 160,000 damage at this point. Enemy battleship trying to effectively run away, get, well outside of range and detectability of pretty much all of the other enemy ships, so he can't be shot at, but he's giving broadside to a lot of different things, including Built's Kharb, and Built has set even more fires. I think he might have Demo Expert on this captain, because that is a god-awful lot of fires set in one battle. Enemy carrier drops torpedoes and actually does manage to hit Built. Didn't quite torpedo beats that as well as we'd hoped. I think if you would hit the brakes there and turn a little more sharply in, you probably could have gone right between those. Would have made for an epic torpedo beats, but oh well, it didn't kill you, and that's what's important. But that carrier is not giving up. He's going to continue to try and take Built out, which is of course going to continuously reset his cap progress. The enemy team still has a destroyer, and they still have their carrier. But the points are still fairly equal, considering they had all three caps for as long as they did. He finally uses his repairability in order to avoid being sunk outright. And, you know, playing the Fletcher a lot, this is an ability that I kind of wish I had sometimes. Last enemy destroyer gets taken out of the game by his team. That means there's just the carrier left, and Built, along with an ally, is going to manage to secure the base at B. Now, this is going to give his team the points advantage in the long run. The enemy team still has one cap, yes, but they only have one ship left, and he can't reveal himself, or he's going to be shot at. It is an aircraft carrier, though, which is good for him, which means he can reach out and touch people anywhere on the map. But he's going to have to defend the C cap point, and if he wants any hope of winning this game, he's got to prioritize and take out those low health targets, like that Baltimore, like Built in his Kharb, and pull those scores back. However, I don't think that's going to happen in this game. So, Built's team managed, mostly through securing kills, which is also a very important part of the game, to turn this game around. At one point, it looked like a total loss. So congratulations to Built and your team for doing an amazing job pulling back. And you'll notice that they really didn't lose any additional ships during that whole thing. I think they've lost one extra ship to the enemies, well, all of them. Friendly Baltimore is now in the process of capping C. That's going to divide the attention of the carrier just a little bit, but he's got his torpedo bombers out there, and I'm sure he's looking for some easier targets to hit. Hitting a destroyer with torpedo bomber is not the easiest thing to do. And there is the CV. He is caught out in the open and in detectability range. At this point, Built has got his anti-aircraft blazing away. He's in a Kharb, he might as well. Aircraft are going to see him anyway as soon as he opens up with his guns. But more importantly, he can provide additional anti-aircraft fire support to the friendly battleships and cruisers that are around him. And when dealing with carriers, every little bit helps. Enemy CV is on fire. He's about to get hit by a torpedo, it looks like. Nope, he manages to torpedo beats that from the friendly carrier. And Built is going to go ahead and open up with his guns and probably set this poor guy on fire as well. Friendly Baltimore also shooting at him, and I'm pretty sure that there's a friendly battleship that's also engaged this Shokaku. There's Built high caliber to go with his Witherer, and there's his Confederate, which is excellent. Who's going to get the kill? It's not Built. Unfortunately, that gets taken by somebody else. But overall, a fantastic battle. Look at that, 182,000 damage done. Witherer, Confederate, First Blood, and high caliber. Even without a smoke screen, Kharb is still an incredibly lethal destroyer, and one of the harder destroyers and more annoying ones to deal with when you're facing against it. Top of the team for XP earned with Witherer, high caliber, Confederate, and First Blood. There's no surprise there. Too bad you didn't get a Kraken to go with that, but you did an excellent amount of damage in your destroyer. Congratulations, Built. Thanks for the replay. Anyway, that's it for today's YouTube video. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me and my channel, as well as get access to my game replays early, those that don't quite make the cut to YouTube in any given week, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. Any support level gets you access to those replays. If you got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can do so by sending it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play World of Warships live, usually on Sundays, you can do so by following my Twitch channel. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.